how many times you ever watch these shows like Behind the Music or something about actors or something about someone that you knew really well, and you find out what was going on in their life though, and why they were so dependent on, different drugs and prescriptions and all kinds of just things in their life that took them down. We see this every day. There's so many people in the news today, on social media today, you hear all the stories. The people was on top of the world in the music industry, top of the world in business, top of the world in athletics. But their life, when you get behind the curtain, they were struggling with something much deeper. And many of them, it cost them everything.
Isn't it ironic that there are so many differences in all of us as a human race? There's some people who like this, some people who like that, and yet there's one thing that we all want, and that is freedom. When we think about freedom, what does freedom really mean? To actually be in a situation in which you can live life on your terms, never worried about money, about time, or about the energy needed to do the thing that you enjoy. What does it actually feel like to have a fulfilling life in which everything just feels as if you can do what it is that's important to you and be able to help those that you love and that you care about, or to support the causes that are important to you? This is the life that we all want, no matter what we call it: entrepreneurship, business career, and professional advancement. No matter what you do, what you try, this one thing we all want. And I want to talk to you about what I call the ultimate freedom. And when you think about the ultimate freedom, there's only three things that you have to keep in mind. There's three levels that you have to attain to. There are three focuses that you must have. Now, here at You Are a CEO, one of my favorite companies in my enterprise, because we do so much to help people, I always put the emphasis on the ultimate freedom, because this is really what we want everyone to begin to move towards. Now, we are all CEOs. That's why we say you are a CEO and you run the business of you. But we want to understand how to move away from being a fettered CEO that is bound by lies and things that we are told in life, business, and in wealth that keep us confused about how to attain any of those things, to becoming a freedom CEO that actually has the truth on what it takes to really be at a high-performing, thriving life, and to actually have a business that is successful while creating wealth that is minimizing anything we have to do to actually live and have the things that we enjoy and that we actually want. We're going to break it down today, and I'm going to explain to you why you need to know about these three levels if you want to achieve the ultimate freedom. Let's jump in. All right, we're going to break down the three levels that you need to focus on if you really want to experience the ultimate freedom. Now, keep this in mind. When we actually begin to start anything, we have to deal with this first level of freedom, and that is to have freedom in our life. Now, when we think about our life, I like to kind of frame it in these 5 words that begin with F, and that is freedom in your focus, in your finances, in your fitness, in your family, and in your future. Now, these 5 areas are very important. And notice we talked about your focus. That has a lot to do with your mindset. That has to do with your, where your thinking is. What are you focusing on? And you have to get really clear about your life, what you want to achieve, where you want to go, what you want to attain to, why your life matters, who it matters for, what you want your life to mean. You have to have that focus. And then you have to understand finances, because if you don't understand how to manage the resources that you have, you're going to not be able to do the things that are important to you. So to actually have your finances in a way that is very manageable and under control, it governs what you're able to do in your life. And then there's your fitness. If you don't deal with your health, then you won't have the energy to do the things that you may want to do. Now, we often go over the battle over what is greater, time or money, and we find out very quickly that time is greater than money, because we know we can always get more money, but we cannot get more time. So time is more valuable. But there is a third caveat, is to understand that health is greater than time and money, because if you don't have your health, which actually has to do with your lifespan, has to actually do with how you feel in the time that you have, right? If you don't have those things, you can't enjoy time or money. So this is why we see this fitness element, which really, I mean health, is so important. So once we take care of those first three, where we're focusing internally, we're focusing within, we can then look at things like family. Now, family has to do with relationships. I don't mean like just your biological family, but I mean relationships, right? The family of relationships you have. This is at work. This is in the community. This is family as well. But all of these relationships, friends, and all the people that we connect with, how are we able to actually connect with people in the best way? What type of skills do we have that we are able to really know how to manage healthy relationships? And then there's future. Future has to do with really being clear on how do I protect and kind of, make sure that everything in my future is protected. Here I think about things like, do I have a living trust? Do I have a will? Do I have certain things in place with life insurance? What do I do to make sure that my life is really under my control in terms of what I want people, to get or not get, or if something happens to me, what is to happen next? All these things are very important. Even looking at how much resources do you need to take care of your future? These are things you think about in that future mindset. So when you think about life, right, these are all elements that when you get them in place will create a level of freedom. But you have to be very intentional about each of those areas and what you're doing to make sure that you arrive at a level of freedom. And when you get all of those things in sync, that's the key. You have to get them all in sync. You end up in a place that I like to call life stability. And from life stability, you can actually move toward a thriving life. So your life must become stable before it can become a sense or a place in which you can thrive. You have to first become stable. So these are the things that we do when we deal with this area. And this is all just the first level of freedom, is getting freedom in our life. Now, I want to talk about another level of freedom. I want to talk about business freedom. Now, some of you out there may not be entrepreneurs. Some of you may be forward-thinking professionals or individuals who want to start a career, and many of you are entrepreneurs. But I want you to understand business is something we all need to understand. And I want you to know that even today, more people are getting it and they're starting to figure it out. That even if I have a career, a thriving career, even if I'm moving up that corporate ladder, I still need to know about starting a business. Starting a business creates all kinds of advantages. It allows you to make money without the ceiling of the corporate structure. It allows you to save money on taxes, and it gives you all kinds of creative things you can do to support the growth of your family, as well as to create more success in your life. So we can't get away from the fact that there's distinct things that we need to know for us to be able to actually achieve more in our freedom through business. So when you begin to create this vehicle, right, of business, it becomes a vehicle to create the wealth. So I'm gonna go to my whiteboard for a minute. So when we think about this journey that we may go on, right, there's a journey that we can go on. And for us to get to this journey, and a lot of times there's all of us that we want to get here to the top here, where there's big money bag up here, right? But I want you to understand that we need a vehicle that we can have that actually can allow us to go on this journey to actually create wealth. Now, sometimes people make a mistake. They start thinking about all the things they're hearing that people are doing who have a lot of money, and they're doing this thing over here in this area, and they're doing, to save money on taxes or to, actually, create more wealth. But some people have not made enough money yet to even have those problems. Business can help us create the problem of having too much money from a tax perspective so that we can get to the next level of freedom, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. So we must have this vehicle. A business is a vehicle. So if you really create a real business, a business is supposed to be a vehicle with a GPS system toward profitability. It is looking for a way to get to profitability. It wants to get to covering all of its expenses and having nothing left over but profit that then belongs to you. Right? So we think about a business, there's all these different elements to it, but at the end of the day,
We have to learn how to actually get that business to the promised land of profits. Now, when we think about getting the business to the promised land of profits, here's the issue. If we could just focus on just getting to the profits, we could just think about price minus cost equals profit, right? But the problem is there's all this other stuff in the way. Inside of that pricing number is your product good enough? Have I made a product that people really want? Have I solved a problem that the market really wants, that a market cares about? That price represents having something to sell and understanding how to actually sell that thing to whomever and making sure that whomever that I'm selling it to is a person that is distinctly ready to buy that thing from me without a lot of effort because I've nailed their problem and I've nailed the solution that actually solves that problem. And that minus cost calculation represents a lot of things. My cost of sales, my operating expenses. There's a team in there in that cost. And if I don't have the skills to actually teach a team how to work together, if I don't understand how to build processes, if I don't understand how to organize the way I operate in my business, that cost actually goes up. And this all diminishes my ability to create profits. So let's look at this for a minute. Let's go back to the whiteboard. So we can see in this vehicle, we have our price minus the cost equals the profit. And the price times the units of service or products that I sell is what creates the revenue. So when I say price, essentially, I'm still talking about revenue. So when you think about this, as I just mentioned, in this one area of price is an understanding, a deep understanding of who my customer is and how my customer thinks. So for this vehicle to be successful, I have to actually put some effort and energy in to learning how to actually create freedom now in my business. See, I become free in my business when I am very clear on the optimal way for my revenue to grow in that business. I found out how to minimize my cost by operating the business better, which is allowing me to maximize my profit. And this is, when I get to the point where my business is generating lots of profits, right? Now I have a new issue, which is a tax issue. So what are you taxed on? You're not taxed on your revenue, right? So this is very important. This is the secret. You're taxed on your profits over here. So the amount of money that I spend is a blessing and a cursing because the more cost I have, it diminishes the profit that I can be taxed on. So we move now because we've learned how to operate a business and get it toward business freedom. We move to a different set of problems, which causes the next level of wealth, I should say freedom that we need, which is wealth freedom. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag there, but you needed it anyway, right? So when we think about the wealth freedom that we need, this is now having the freedom of wealth literacy. See, once you understand the things that have been hidden by the wealthy, you'll begin to see that there's a reason why so many wealthy people don't pay any taxes at all. This is because they have a set of skills and knowledge that is not common to everybody. And they're dealing with a whole different set of rules and issues that most people don't talk about around the dinner table. Most people are just trying to survive. Most people are just trying to make money. But they don't understand the whole lifestyle of money, making money, and then doing things to keep the money that you make. Ironically, when we think about the IRS, right? Let me go to my whiteboard again, and I want to write IRS. And I want you to think, when you think about IRS, we get different emotions. Sometimes we get fear, right? Because these are individuals with a lot of power that can impact our life. Now, I had one gentleman that cracked me up saying that this stands for insidious representatives of Satan. And he was saying this to say, this is how it feels when you think about the IRS. They can just come in and just do whatever, right? And so
But I want you to understand something. When you think about the IRS, I want to show you something here on the whiteboard, that all of the things that the IRS is governed by is what is called the tax code. And this tax code that was created by the IRS, I want you to think about something very deeply. This tax code was not written to take money from you. The tax code was written to tell the wealthy how to not have to pay taxes. Let me say that again. The tax code was written to tell the wealthy how to not pay taxes. Now, this is a big revelation. If you really get this, you'll come to the understanding that the tax code is actually our friend. We have to learn how to use it, though. Most people see it as something I don't need to understand. I'll just give it to my tax preparer. Let me know what they're going to hit me for this year. That's how we live. Like, what is it? Oh, no. How much? That's how we live. Other people that are experiencing wealth freedom take the time to surround themselves with the knowledge and wisdom to learn what this tax code is saying, and they make moves strategically to prevent themselves from having to pay taxes. They understand real estate. They understand depreciation. They understand how to use tax laws in business. They understand that it matters how much money you spend on certain things and how you can attribute that spending to a business expense. These all are things that come together to create a wealth freedom now. And when we begin to create a wealth freedom, now we're going to a very high level. So I hope you can see these three levels of freedom. What we're saying is there's a life freedom, there's a business freedom, and there's a wealth freedom. And we need all three to have the ultimate freedom. So there's a lot of people out here helping with one of those areas, right? And this is why I created You Are a CEO, because we need a community and a vehicle that is thinking about all three at the same time, because you need to understand all three at the same time, because you are literally creating issues within all three every day of your life. So when we become the CEO of this journey of becoming a freedom CEO in which we now can live life on our terms because we understand the three levels that we need to focus on, we actually now can have a meaningful journey that is creating success on purpose. And that is what we want to do here at You Are a CEO. And that's why I call myself, Michael E. Parker, the CEO Maker, because I want you to have the knowledge and understanding as the CEO of your life to experience the ultimate freedom. And that is how you get there, is by first knowing the path. Now, do you know any people that were successful in business, right, and achieved great wealth, but life got in the way and caused them to lose it all? So here's what I want to show you. You cannot have one without the other. And let me show you this on the whiteboard real quick. When you think about kind of like a Venn diagram, right, and we look at life, business, we look at wealth, we're really looking at this place where all three of these meet, right? This is really where we want to be, and this is the focus of what we talk about at You Are a CEO. This is my goal, to see more people arrive at that middle part here, right? This is what we call the ultimate freedom. So anyone that tells you, hey, listen, you should really focus on just growing your business, that's awesome. But real quickly, you'll find out that life destroys it all, and you won't be able to enjoy that business. You don't pay attention to your health. You don't pay attention to how you manage money. You don't pay attention to the relationships. How many people do you know that built a successful business but lost their relationships because they put so much focus on the business, they lost their spouse, or they lost that friendship, or they lost their child because they stopped parenting, right? And then someone will tell you, hey, I'm going to teach you everything about wealth, right? Same issue, right? And then you can focus a lot on your life, right? But not have any money to do the things that you need to do.
So you have to think about business, how to create financial gain in some way. And again, with business creates this issue for understanding wealth. So it's all interrelated. And the point is, there's not one of these that you can do in isolation. That is why we have to understand the ultimate freedom. This is why so many people accomplish things and they still wonder what's missing, what's wrong. Is because oftentimes we're making decisions compartmentalized in one of these areas, and we're not thinking holistically about all three of them. And that's why I've created an avenue for people to be able to have that mindset here within You Are a CEO. Now, let's talk about some examples, though. Let's go back for a minute. Some of you remember Howard Hughes. Now, Hughes was really a billionaire businessman, right? An aviator, a filmmaker. Later in life, though, he was marred by severe health problems and mental health struggles, right? He became increasingly reclusive, suffering from obsessive compulsive disorder, also just chronic pain. His lack of personal care and just declining mental state, it left him isolated and unable to maintain his business empire that he had built. This all led to a significant decline in all of his wealth and his well-being. These are people that we know. Some of you remember MC Hammer, and he had a song that said, "You can't touch this," but he got touched by life. Why? Because he was a rapper entrepreneur. He enjoyed all this success in the 80s and 90s, but realizing that after all of that, at his peak, he had like a $33 million fortune, but due to extravagant spending, poor money management skills, overextending his investments, this all led him to bankruptcy in 1996. And, he had a staff of like 200 people, and all of this contributed to a financial downfall because it was something he didn't understand, right? Very, very important. What about Bobby Fischer? Some of you may know of Bobby Fischer. He was a chess prodigy. He was just a master in chess, and he was a world champion. Fischer became a global icon, but at the same time, despite all that success, he struggled with his mental health. He became increasingly just erratic. He was paranoid. And in 1975, he just refused to defend his title. Like, he just wasn't there anymore. He started to put himself in a self-imposed exile from everybody. And he just left the chess world with no financial stability at all. Eventually, he died in just this obscure situation, estranged from his friends, his family, living just in Iceland, of all places, far away from the whole chess, competitive game. He just lost it. Something happened. How many times you ever watch these shows like Behind the Music or something about actors or something about someone that you knew really well about, then you find out what was going on in their life though, and why they were so dependent on, different drugs and prescriptions and all kinds of just things in their life that took them down. We see this every day. There's so many people in the news today, on social media today, you hear all the stories. The people was on top of the world in the music industry, top of the world in business, top of the world in athletics. But their life, when you get behind the curtain, they were struggling with something much deeper. And many of them, it cost them everything, right? So this shows us you can't ignore it. Now, let's think about some examples of people who lived a good life for the most part, but they didn't understand business. And because they didn't understand business, they just left this untapped, unfulfilled dream that just hangs over the history of their life. Let's think about someone like Vincent van Gogh. Now, though Van Gogh is now celebrated as one of the greatest artists in history, and this is, amazing. There's so many people we talk about in history and how great they were, but we don't really know that, like, Dr. King was broke, right? As great as he was, but he was broke, right? So Van Gogh, as an example, is celebrated as one of the greatest artists in history during his lifetime, but he struggled to make a living every day of his life. Why? Van Gogh was an artist, but he didn't understand business. He didn't know what to do with his talent and how to monetize it. So despite all this passion and dedication to art, he sold only a few paintings while he was alive. Now, isn't this terrible? he generated more wealth after he was dead because he didn't understand business. And not only did he generate more wealth, it was wealth that he never got to enjoy and no one in his family because he didn't understand these principles, right? So all his financial troubles plagued him. He relied heavily on financial support from his brother, right? And, I think his brother's name was Theo or something. He was always going to Theo and saying, Theo, can you help me? Here, as great as he was, as talented, as genius as he was leaning on Theo all the time. Van Gogh's inability to translate his talent into financial success, into a business medium, it meant he never saw the reward of all of his work. He just left behind an unfulfilled dream. We talk about it now, but what was his life like, right? What was his life like? What about Tesla? Now, Tesla was a brilliant inventor. This is Nicholas Tesla. And then we go into the real history here of Tesla. And he was a brilliant inventor and an engineer whose innovations really helped to shape a lot of the modern electricity and wireless technology. And that's why you see some of the famous things that was named, about Tesla cars and all that. This goes back to a real person and their histories you may or may not know. Now, he was a genius. And Tesla, was never able to convert his inventions into a long-term financial success. He never developed a business acumen to be able to develop those resources and capitalize on his ideas. So just a lot of his projects never got funded, and Tesla died penniless, unable to see the full impact of all his life's work around the world. Even cars named after this, he never saw this. So I want you to see people come behind later and they take real business experience and capitalize on other people's life because they didn't know how to do that themselves. They didn't know about the ultimate freedom, right? Vincent van Gogh felt free when he was painting. He felt his life, everything. He just enjoyed it, but he couldn't get the ultimate freedom because he didn't understand business. Now, think about Scott Joplin. Now, he's known as the king of ragtime. Joplin created music that was influential in America and throughout cultures for decades, right? And throughout all his musical brilliance, he struggled financially, though, and he never achieved the financial success that he hoped for in his life. The opera, I think was called Treemonisha, was just his dream project. But due to lack of financial backing, not having no public interest, not knowing how to sell, not knowing how to promote, it wasn't successful, right? And it didn't really take on success until after he died and leaving his dream completely unfulfilled. So this is a great example that they had a thriving life, but they didn't know business. So then it just left this out. I hope you're getting this. This is why it's important to understand the ultimate freedom from day one, so that there's 3 things you need to be focusing on. Now, not at all at the same time, but you need to be aware of them because some of those things will guide how you do what you do, why you do what you do, and when you do what you do. Now, let's look at some examples of people who thrived in business but didn't understand wealth. Didn't have the wealth literacy to understand how to actually be smart with the money to make it grow and to protect it from being taken away from you. Let's deal with Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes was a successful actor. He had roles like Blade and White Men Can't Jump and all of this. Made millions during his career, millions. However, he ran into significant trouble with the insidious representatives of Satan, the IRS. And due to tax evasion, in 2008, he was convicted of willfully failing to file his tax returns for several years, resulting in 3 years prison sentence. His failure to manage his wealth and pay taxes cost him millions of dollars. And he faced financial difficulties as a result, pretty much to this day, right? Let's look at country music giant Willie Nelson. Great music icon. Nelson earned millions throughout his career.
However, due to mismanagement of his finances, failure to pay taxes, right? Just not knowing what to do, he faced a $16.7 million debt to the IRS just in 1990. He trusted his accountants, right? He wasn't the CEO of his own understanding and his own wealth and knowledge. He didn't have it inside. He just trusted his accountants to handle his financial matters, but they made poor decisions, including failing to pay his taxes. So, to avoid bankruptcy, Nelson had to sell most of all his assets, his homes, his properties. He even released an album called The IRS Tapes. Who will buy my memoirs, right? He made a song, right? Just to help pay off the debt. Why? He didn't understand the wealth game. He didn't get free in his wealth area, but he had a good business and he had a good life, so to speak. But he didn't understand wealth. Let's look at Michael Jackson, king of pop, one of the most successful entertainers of all time, hands down, earning hundreds of millions of dollars. However, despite his massive income and all the success, his extravagant spending, his, financial decisions, including large debts and investments like Neverland Ranch and all of this stuff, by the time of his death in 2009, Jackson was deeply in debt. Actually reportedly owing around $500 million just due to poor wealth management. Now we know he's worth more than that now, especially in his death. And there's a lot of things that he was able to do. He bought the Beatles catalog, he did all this stuff, but he was really dealing with some situations. Let's got another, music icon. Some of you remember Marvin Gaye. He's a great, great soulful singer back in the day. Legendary songwriter, and he has so much success. But due to poor money management and not knowing how to deal with wealth and taxes, he accumulated a significant tax debt. And he made bad investments on top of that, and this all led to him declaring bankruptcy in the 1970s. All his financial troubles were compounded by expensive, personal spending, the relationship issues with divorce settlements, there's the life issues, right? All the legal disputes he had, and it just drained all of his wealth, drained it all. And I could talk about so many more. Mike Tyson, this one, that one, went through some horrible things, all by not understanding how to obtain the ultimate freedom. Someone may have said, well, hey, if you just work on this yourself, your personal development, happiness is within. You don't need to worry about nothing else. Yeah, but happiness is within. There's some things money can't buy, but there are some things that you need money to buy, for sure. And so you learn you got to do something about that. And then you say, have a successful business. That's true, but if you don't know what to do after that money start coming in, you won't have it long, because there's things set up to make sure that you don't necessarily keep all that you make unless you know what to do. So let me go to my whiteboard for a minute. I'm going to draw something, and then I'm going to actually go to the wall, my LED wall, and I'm going to just show you why this is so important. So I'm going to draw it like this. And we're going to put life up here. Put business here. Then we're going to put wealth here. And here, of course, on our big money bag, we got our business here. And we've got processes within that business that are all generating. And here we got our life. And we want that to be a happy, fulfilling life. I want to break this down for you. I'm going to take just a quick minute and I will see you at the wall. So let's talk about this diagram and what it really means. And this is really critical because this is a freedom journey that you need to understand. We all have to begin to travel if we want the ultimate freedom. So as you can see, we have our life here, and our life is something that we want to begin to, achieve the freedom necessary for it to be fulfilling, for it to be something that really is altogether strong and stable so that we can actually begin to thrive in the things that matter to us personally, that matter to our life and the spaces around our life, right? So we want that to be a happy situation. The ultimate goal of this being together is that we would be happy. Now, when you think about that, though, you notice at the same time, we also have to be thinking about our business. Now, one of the reasons we have to be thinking about our business is because the business is what's going to help us create the money to actually support our life. So no matter if you have a career or if you don't own your own business, you want to know about business and you want to be able to know about entrepreneurship too, even if you're in a current career, because ultimately this is going to help in your pursuit of generating the money necessary that you can get to larger amounts of wealth. So you notice when the life and the business, they come together, right? And they end up at this this point. And there's this point at which when we begin to, get to this point where our life and our business are in sync. I've got my life in order. I'm doing the things. I'm keeping things intact. I'm not sacrificing my health to help my business. I'm not forgetting about my relationships while I try to grow my revenue. I'm getting all these things in sync. So I get to this point now, right? So the point is about right here. And I get to this point where now I'm generating money and I'm enjoying my life, but I have to actually start learning about wealth. And to get to wealth, I start to move down this path because where I want to go further down this path where now I'm actually getting to the big money bag, where now the wealth is being generated and created because not only am I making more money, but I'm keeping more money. So I want to get to the point where I'm able to keep more money because I am being smarter about what to do. I understand about real estate and depreciation. I know what it means to use certain rules in the tax code to actually leverage my business to save more money. I know how to show less money on the tax return, but keep more money in terms of the money I can actually have access to and use. I know how to be very wise of what is an expense and how to make things that are of value in my life an expense to the business. How do I do all of that? It's because I've grown in the freedom necessary of wealth literacy to be able now to get the big money bag. So I want you to notice something though. I actually put something else here on this diagram. If you look here in this diagram, here at the top, there's actually a dotted line from the life area. And I want you to understand, although our life and business comes together and we begin to move into now how to create more wealth and protect more of that wealth, we never can lose sight of our life, right? Our life is something that has to keep on going, right? We have to keep on going even when we make the wealth. We got to still stay on top of our focus and our finance and our fitness and our family and our future. Like it never really ends. So there is a journey, but keep in mind, this dotted line kind of keeps on going because it never really ends. But we do want to get to the point where our life and our business create a nexus and a connection point for us to move into wealth, where now we have something that just time has become our friend, because the vehicle that generates wealth and protects the wealth is just running every day, every week, every month, every year, creating more money from the money, every year, creating more money from the money that I already have. This is what it's all about. Now, I want to give you some final thoughts. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this discussion on the ultimate freedom. Now, I was just really thinking about this because I love talking about this. It's, I'm so passionate about seeing people really get to that ultimate freedom in their life. And, I was thinking about, and just pulled up real quick on my phone, I was thinking about, all the examples I was talking about, just individuals who arrived at so much. And, not long ago, we saw the death of the musician entertainer Prince. And I was trying to remember how I knew the situation was bad, but how bad was it? And I just want to read you a few things to keep in mind. Now, here was someone that, he was very independent. He prided himself at doing his own thing and not being a part of the normal record labels and all of that stuff. He was very, smart as a business person with respect to things with his catalog and his music while he was alive. And he was known for that. He would always say stuff publicly that was thought-provoking that a lot of people in the music industry didn't really want to hear. He would tell people about how much money did you really make, even though you sold a gazillion records, how much did you really keep? So he always was speaking out about this, right? So he was savvy on the business end, right? But he didn't understand the wealth side. And this is a great example. So let me read you some things. So he had no will or an estate plan, right? So despite amassing an estimated fortune of around $300 million, Prince passed away in 2016 without a will or a proper estate planning. This oversight led to a protracted legal battle among his relatives and potential heirs. Without a will, his estate became subject to significant legal and tax complications, including large estate taxes, which could have minimized with the proper financial planning. And taxes is one of our biggest expenses in the world because we get taxed on so many levels. I don't have time to get into it now, but we're taxed on so many levels, right? It literally, takes like over 50% of our money in different ways. Even if you die, like the death tax, estate tax, it's just amazing. His music catalog and ownership, like Prince was famously protective of his music, and he fought really hard to regain ownership of his master recordings from his record label, Warner Brothers, which he eventually achieved. He got all of his masters. However, after his death, the future of his vast music catalog and unreleased material became tied up in legal disputes due to the lack of estate planning, which caused delays and all kinds of decisions regarding his legacy, his future earnings from his music. All of that stuff didn't go to where he wanted it to go because he didn't have these things in place, right? And then due to his lack of estate planning, Prince's estate faced a massive tax burden. So federal and state estate taxes, right, consumed a significant portion of all this wealth that he had created. They came in and just took it all, right? Suggesting that his estate was liable for around 40 to 50% of its value in taxes. So this mass value of his estate, they said over like 40 to 50% of it should be paid in taxes because he didn't protect it. He didn't know what to do in that regard, right? This resulted in a lengthy legal process, including disputes over the value of his estate, further diminishing the potential wealth that could have been preserved for all of his heirs and the ones that were important to him, the ones that he loved. And so when we think about the ultimate freedom, I hope you see why we need to be the CEO of our life, the CEO of our business, and the CEO of our wealth. Here at URCL, that's our focus. And we deal with this whole dilemma of what we really need to understand to actually have the ultimate freedom. Now, if you're interested in knowing more about the ultimate freedom, I'm hosting an event. And this event is in November, and you do not want to miss it. So you make sure, if you are ready to get a powerful experience just in a few days that will give you just enormous information and wisdom that you need to know about life, business, and wealth in one event, you don't want to miss this event. Make sure and check the description and click the link and find out how to register to be a part. It is going to be an explosive event. And so make sure you stay in touch with all the things URCL. We're always doing something to help you achieve the ultimate freedom because that's what this is all about. So I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. Make sure you like and subscribe and do everything you can to remain and to always thrive at being the CEO of your life because it is up to you to reach the ultimate freedom and to get on your freedom journey by making a conscious decision that that is something that you demand from life because you're going to do everything in life so that you can achieve that exact destination. I'll see you next time, and I hope that you enjoyed this.